Okay, so now I want to work with a little bit of user input here. And, you know, again, the apples and oranges thing is going to come into play. So we need to be mindful of data types. And this is good because in Small Basic, we did not have to be mindful of data types at all. But now we're being challenged on this. And this is how a lot of like serious programming languages are. So it's good to have this experience. So consider this example. I have created a variable called username. And I've initialized it to a null string, okay? And then I'm saying to the user, please enter your name. And then the user is going to enter his or her name. And we're using the input method to get that data from the keyboard, the user's name that they type, and that is going to go into the username variable. Okay, so then I can turn around and print that and say, hello, so-and-so. And, you know, we talked about this in the last video, how you can do a placeholder and format the username. Actually, in this case, I could just do the straight concatenation because I've got apples and apples, right? The user's name is a string. Whatever the user inputs is going to come in as a string. So I could just as easily do just like kind of the Small Basic way and say, oops, hello, and then concatenate the username. That'll work as well. Okay, so let me go ahead and run that, and I'll enter my name, and there it is. Okay. So yeah. So anyway, let's put a variation on this. I'll go back to this format. I think we should get used to this format. It's a little more sophisticated, and you have more control over it. So what I want to do now is do a simple temperature converter. And I want to show you why you have to be mindful of data types. First, let's create a couple of variables here. So I have temp-f, which I'm initializing to a nice clean 0, and temp-c, nice clean 0. And I'm going to say to the user, please enter a temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and what's going to happen, the user is going to enter a temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, and we are going to, again, use the input method to put that data into the temp-f variable. Okay, and then we're going to turn around. Oh, you know what? Before we do the calculation, let's just do this. Here, I'm going to do this. I'll say you entered, and then let me try to concatenate that. This will be interesting. What do you think is going to happen here? I'm going to, let's say I enter like, you know, 100 degrees. How is that going to play out here? Okay, first my name, and I'm going to enter 100 degrees. You entered 100. That was a number, and I'm concatenating it to a string. This goes against what I said about the apples and oranges thing. Here's the thing. I'm not dealing with apples and oranges, and this is subtle, but this is going to come back to haunt us, okay? Everything you read with input comes in as string data. String data. What does that mean? When I typed in the 100, what I was really typing, unknown to me, was 100 as a string. That's quite different from this. This is not the same thing as this. Okay, so when I typed the 100, that came in as a string, and so it was no problem here. It was apples and apples. I'm concatenating a string to a string, just like I did with the username. So let's keep that in mind, all right? So I'm just going to continue with the calculation here. I lost my calculation. Okay, so we'll say, I'll just type it from memory here. So we'll say temp-c equals, we've got to do temp-f minus 32 I believe. Hang on, let me just double check this. Yeah, minus 32 times 5 over 9, okay? Times 5 over 9. Okay, great. I have my Celsius. Now I will print the results. And here I have that code already in place. So it's going to say, let's say I enter 32. 32 degrees Fahrenheit is 0 degrees Celsius. Using the format method and providing TempF and TempC in the correct order as the placeholders. Let me run it. Okay, entering my name. And then I said I was going to enter 32 this time. All right, so what's the problem here? Okay, it's actually bombing on the math statement, and here's why. As I said, when the user enters a number here, like when I entered 32 just then, this is what actually came into my program, 32 in quotes, like as a string. And here's the thing, you cannot do math with string data. You can't do math. So this is why Python is bombing on the math statement. You can't do math with a string. Unless it's just simple little concatenation. That's not math. It's like stringing together like beads on a necklace. It's not real math. So you can't do math with a string. So what do we have to do? We have to make sure that the input coming in is not a string. And you can do that by, like, let's say I want that 32 degrees to be like integer data. Like, let's say I don't care about fractions of degrees. I don't care if it's 32.1 or whatever. I just care about this, you know, straight integer. I can make sure that comes in as an integer by using this is called a constructor. I don't feel like you need to know that term necessarily, but I do need you to know how to use it. So I'm going to wrap that input, that call to the input method, in this guy, the int constructor. So now the data that comes in is like packaged as an integer. We can think of it that way. Think of it as you're packaging the input as an integer. Otherwise, you're going to get a string, not the correct format. So let's run it. Okay. And we'll do 32 degrees. That is 0 degrees Celsius. I think it's working. Let's just do one more run just to be sure. I like to test known values. 212 is 100 degrees Celsius, so it is working. So you do have to do a little maneuvering now, and now you have to be cognizant of data types, especially when user input is coming in. If that's got to be a number, you're going to have to finesse it a little bit so it's in the proper data type and not just string data.